Shooting from Marsh Lake Road and hitting the golfers.
We should be in baseball.
I will now call this meeting to order. Our first order of business is to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. Commissioners, is there a motion to adopt the final agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the final agenda.
Excellent. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion does carry. Our next order of business is to adopt the minutes from the April 5th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. Commissioners, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. The motion does carry. Our first discussion item on our agenda tonight is item 3.1, sketch plat review for Huntersbrook 3rd Edition project. While this item does not include a formal public hearing, neighbors within 350 feet of the subject property have been invited to provide comment and ask questions at tonight's meeting to serve as a neighborhood meeting. This item is for discussion and feedback only. I will now turn this over to Community and Economic Development Director Marty Dole for staff presentation. Marty?
Thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. Yes, before you this evening is a sketch plat application from Tradition Development for the Huntersbrook 3rd Edition. As a reminder, with sketch plat, there are no approvals or actions taken during the meeting. It really is just an opportunity to provide guidance to assist the applicant in any subsequent preliminary plat application. And Chair, as you noted, property owners within 350 feet of the subject properties were notified and invited to participate in this meeting in lieu of a separate neighborhood meeting. So the area that is currently under application and a sketch plat provided includes portions of outlots D and G within the Huntersbrook 1st Edition, as well as all of outlot I from the Huntersbrook 1st Edition, as well as a portion of 108060 Victoria Drive. So you can kind of see the area outlined in blue here. So the outlot D and G are these portions up here as part of Huntersbrook 1st, and outlot I, which was outlotted with the intention of being brought forward for development at a later date. Combined, these areas are approximately 47 acres with 34 net developable acres. Currently, these parcels are heavily wooded and used for agricultural purposes. There will be a tree survey required with any subsequent preliminary plat applications. There are several wetlands, and these properties do fall under the guidance of the Carver County Watershed Management Organization. The area is guided in the city's comprehensive plan for low-density residential, which, as you'll recall, calls for 2.2526 units per acre at 34 net acres and 77 lots. That falls at 2.26 units per acre, which is within the low-density guidance in the city's comp plan. Because outlots D, G, and I were annexed as part of the Huntersbrook 1st Edition, those properties are already within the city of Victoria. They were also zoned PUD with R1 single-family underlying zoning as part of that 1st Edition. However, the portion of 10860 Victoria Drive is currently within Laketown Township and will require annexation and zoning as the project progresses. Staff recommends to the applicant that an annexation petition should be submitted prior to or concurrently with preliminary plat, and the applicant is proposing to zone the entire development PUD. So as was included in your background packet, and we can come back to this slide as part of discussion, here is the current concept layout. So you can see the area to the north would be an extension of what will likely be platted as the Huntersbrook 2nd Edition, which the Planning Commission has approved preliminary plat for, with a cul-de-sac extending here. And as is being proposed, and we'll look at bulk regulations in a minute, is there larger tradition style lots. with the southern portion, Outlot I, and the additional parcel being planned for smaller villa lots. The road here is Creekside Lane, which is anticipated to be extended as part of the Marsh Hollow development to the south, which was recently approved, and then bringing a loop road through this area. So getting to those zoning and lot regulations, there are currently 3 different lot types that are being proposed in this development. The southern portion is proposed to be a smaller villa style lot, 2 different house styles that have slightly different bulk regs. Both of those would be 55-foot minimum lot widths, with the Smithtown lot, a majority of those lots being 125 feet in depth, and the second house type, Maxwell lot type, being 112 feet in depth. Side yard setbacks for all of the lots are proposed to be 7.5 feet each side, front yard setbacks of 25 feet for all, rear yard setbacks of 25 feet for the villa products and 30 feet for the tradition, and then where corner setbacks would apply, that is proposed to be 20 feet. So again, just for comparison, and this was also included in your background, you can see how those lot areas, widths, and dimensions compare to some other recently approved developments. So the Marsh Hollow Villa product that will be just to the south, as well as the applicant's first edition Tradition Homes, which they are again proposing as part of this edition. As was noted in your background packet, staff has identified a couple of lots that we are continuing to work with the applicant on, either realigning or potentially removing, just based on setbacks and layout, particularly the lots on the southeast corner. There are some constrictions with shoreland setbacks and some of the wetland buffering. So the applicant has expressed a willingness to continue to work with staff on trying to make those lots work better. Moving on to buffers and screening. So in like all of our developments, there are buffer requirements when homes are double fronted, having their front and rear yard adjacent to a roadway. In this instance, the applicant is proposing, rather than providing a buffer in the rear yards of these lots that would back up to Creekside Lane, actually creating a tree preservation outlot in this area that would preserve a number of the large trees that are in this existing tree stand. In addition, related to buffers and screening, there are a few corner lots that have been called out that will require 15-foot landscape buffers and required plantings. You can see them in green and circled here. And the applicant is proposing a 25-foot setback from Creekside Lane, which will allow ample space for that buffer and additional required plantings. There is no park identified in this location in the city's comprehensive plan, so the applicant will need to satisfy their park dedication, approximately 2.13 acres with park dedication fee, and the applicant has indicated they will also likely request credit for some trail construction, which is allowed by code. We spoke a little bit about the transportation and right-of-way and access earlier in the presentation. Okay, it's back. Thought we lost it there for a second. So as was mentioned, Creekside Lane, the collector roadway, is anticipated to be extended to the property line here as part of the Marsh Hollow development. The applicant with this addition would intend to include a looped road through here to provide access to their additional lots. Also, this northern piece would be intended to be a cul-de-sac extension of Scenic Loop Run with a few minor lot configurations from the previous Huntersbrook preliminary plat. There is an area within the plat, so the far southwest corner, that currently proposes some private driveways. As is proposed, there would be 10 lots with an emergency access out to Creekside Lane. City code does limit the, without a waiver of that from the council, does limit the number of homes on a private drive to 3. Staff does believe there's potentially a outcome that would allow more than 3 homes on a private drive, that this could be configured in a different way, but not necessarily as many as are being shown now. So the applicant has, again, indicated a willingness to continue to work with staff on trying to figure out another possible way to orient the lots and the drives through here. But the reason private drive may be acceptable in this area is that with this large wetland in the center, it really doesn't provide enough space for the city's typical 60-foot right-of-way and public roadway through this section. But again, staff does plan to continue to work with the applicant on trying to find a better solution for this area. 6-foot concrete sidewalks are being proposed on one side of all local streets. You can see those in blue on the attached or on the adjacent map. There is an 8-foot bituminous trail that will be constructed along Creekside Lane, as is required along collector roadways. As you'll recall, the Marsh Hollow development will be constructing trail on the south side of their property here. They have a proposed park in this area. But there is more discussion that will be needed just to figure out exactly where this trail on the north side should terminate to be able to provide a good crossing for folks that will be coming from the north to the south and to be able to get into the park or continue on the trail further along. As was noted, there is significant high-quality tree stands within the property. The proposed concept plan does provide for preservation of that stand of trees along Creekside Lane, as was mentioned, but does cause for elimination of many of the remaining trees. Staff is continuing to encourage additional tree preservation within the development to the extent possible. Again, the applicant has expressed a desire to do the same as well, and any trees that are removed in this area will be subject to replacement pursuant to the city's tree preservation and replacement code. Utilities, sanitary sewer is planned to be extended from the south, from the Marsh Hollow development. Additional engineering is needed to determine if elevations are such that gravity sewer can be provided to the northern lots off of that cul-de-sac, so there's still some work being done there. Water is planned to be extended from Marsh Hollow as well as Huntersbrook first, and staff is recommending continued engineering to determine if those systems can be looped. The property, as I noted, is within the Carver County WMO and will be subject to their rules. It is also within a tributary shoreland area. The Chaska Creek runs through a part of this property, so it is subject to the same type of shoreland rules that we talked about with the Marsh Hollow development related to tributaries, not nearly as stringent as those when we're dealing with lakes. There are stormwater features, wetlands, and buffers that will need to be deeded to the city, as with all of our developments. And then, again, as with all of our developments, access will need to be provided to all stormwater ponds in accordance with city standards. So ultimately, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission consider any questions or comments if there are folks in attendance tonight that would like to speak on the proposed development, and then also consider the following items identified by staff that will continue to work to revise or eliminate the staff identified compromise lots, that the applicant will continue to work with staff to revise the area that includes a private drive, that will continue to work on determining final placement of the trail along Creekside Lane, that tree preservation is a high priority and as many trees as possible are saved on the site, that an annexation petition be submitted either prior to or concurrently with preliminary plat, and then that all sewer, water, and stormwater management recommendations from the city engineer, WMO, as well as the DNR are adhered to as plans move forward. And with that, Chair Iverson, that concludes the staff presentation. We do have representatives from the development team in the audience who I'm sure would be happy to answer any questions.
Excellent, very good. Thank you very much, Marty. Appreciate it. I'll now open the floor to the Planning Commission to discuss any questions, any comments on this development.
Well, private roads aren't my favorite thing, especially when people on the road pay taxes. The City of Victoria doesn't reduce your taxes because they're not responsible for plowing the road or maintaining the road. So who is? Is it the entire HOA is going to own this road and do it, or what could be done so the city could take responsibility for this private road? The city does have smaller vehicles. Why is it a private road, I guess is the question.
Yeah, Commissioner Schwarting, Chair, members of the commission, I will probably defer to the applicant to speak about who ultimate ownership of it, whatever ends up being private drive, who that would be responsible for that. From the city standard, our standard right of way for roadways is 60 feet to be able to, again, allow enough street to be able to be plowed and maintained, enough room for utilities and easements, boulevards, boulevard trees, those typical things that you see in a public roadway. So there is hesitancy from engineering as well as the Public Works Department to reduce public roadways to smaller than that 60-foot standard. Again, staff does believe that 10 lots on a single private drive is probably too many. It becomes then at that point more of a private road than a private drive. So we feel like there is some opportunity to try to reduce that. The code does allow up to 3 homes on those private drives by right with the code. But again, I'll defer to the applicant on ownership of those private drives.
Just a quick question. How short are we with this private drive vis-a-vis a road in terms of space? I mean, is it 10 feet? Is it 50?
Patrick, or Dave, do you recall what the width on that private drive as it's shown? 24 feet.
So we're a pretty good distance from the standard roadside, correct?
From our standard right-of-way, correct? Yeah.
Not only with the street width, but then you added the road.
Could you come up to the podium and then identify yourself, and it'll be on the mic
gotcha.
also? Thank
Dave
you.
Nash with Alliant Engineering, project engineer for Tradition on this. Just the other thing to keep in mind with the public right-of-way, the front setback is measured from the right-of-way line. So it'd have to be from center line 30 feet out to the right-of-way, then the setback. Whereas with the private drive, we can have the road and then our setback is from the curb. So it leaves us, as Marty said, a lot more, it reduces the amount of room needed. We just didn't really have room to get a public road through that area.
So
As far as maintenance, Pat, I'm sure can.
Good evening, Commissioners. Pat Rossi with Tradition Development. So with the private roads, we prefer a public road as well, but with the layout here and the space constraints, we've shown it with a private drive, and we've used that in other areas that have high level of natural amenities as a means to get some homes back in these areas where we don't have room for the full 60-foot right away, like Marty mentioned. So with respect to the maintenance, in all of our villa subdivisions that we have a sub-association that takes care of the maintenance of all of the lawn care, the trees and landscaping. We also include a budget item for the private maintenance of the roadways and collect funds from the members of that sub-association for future maintenance requirements.
So everybody, those not on the private road would be paying for maintenance of the private road?
I can't say for sure at this point. With the way it's very separated from the piece on the east side of the
Because it
creek.
depends how you set up the HOA, right? And
Pardon me?
it would depend on how you set up the
Yes,
HOA.
yes, we could have two sub-associations in here to differentiate between the eastern portion that's on the public road and the western that's on the
Yeah,
private
the only reason this comes up is that my HOA, 18 homes, 3 sit on a private road, and it's a problem. It's problematic for the plowing of the road and the maintenance of the road. Right now, it's the responsibility of the 3 homes who are on that road. They've agreed to do that, and they've actually plowed it themselves, because when the builder was coordinating things, the plowing costs were astronomical. So it just seems problematic, that's all. And it seems unfair for the city to tax them the same as anybody else when they're not providing those services. That's just my opinion.
Sure.
But to the extent that you're already plowing the other ones, the snow plowing is probably not that big a deal.
On the other ones?
Well,
on the
you're doing,
public road?
it's full maintenance, right?
Well,
On the villas?
on the villas, we would be providing the snow removal for the driveways.
Right.
And the sidewalks. up
So, but
to
the
homes.
extra homes here on the private road are villas or not villas?
They are showing us villas, yes.
So they're villas, so they're part of that.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a contractor out there.
Gets spread out across everybody in that regard, so it's
Yeah.
probably not as meaningful. Whereas our HOA, everybody's on their own, so, yeah.
Okay.
I don't like them. I do want to commend you for your tree preservation outlot as a buffer. I do want to say that that's an excellent choice.
Well, thank you. It's a beautiful piece of land, and we see the trees there as a great amenity to the future home buyers there. So we're going to do everything that we can to preserve the large growth trees.
Thanks.
Just to tag on to the HOA, and like Commissioner Swarting, I'm in a HOA also, and the original development plan, which is about roughly 13 years old now, somewhere in that range, and there was some changes by the time that it was originally platted until it was developed. And I've been on the HOA for 10 years since it originated. The secret is to have an absolute minimum of complexities. And whatever the complexities are today, they will only multiply in a very short time. So I guess I would recommend taking a look at it and seeing, how to truly nail it down. I'm not suggesting that it shouldn't work. I'm just suggesting that let's take a look at the complexities of it and figure out a way of dealing with those. Because private roads, there's the outside contractors, which of course is what we have. But that's always an issue. So, any other thoughts on the development, gentlemen?
I had another thought that we could clear up, and Marty, maybe you're the best to answer this. I know that when we were looking at the subdivision to the south of this, there was a question about this particular collector road, sort of in the south half of it being an easement in the outlot that it's sitting in, and then we discussed when this parcel would be developed of actually doing away with the concept of the easement and have the subdivision plotted so that these would be roads that would be deeded to the city as actual parcels rather than to have easements and the legal complications thereof.
Yeah, Commissioner Vansky, chair, members of the commission, the intention would be that that portion of Creekside Lane that falls on the property that Tradition will be platted as right-of-way. So then you would have the full contingent of right-of-way between the two plats, the Marsh Hollow plat and the Huntersbrook third plat. So at the point of preliminary plat is where you'd see that actual delineation of the right-of-way being included.
Okay. So would we make a note so that, it's no secret that you won't be with us, but that your successor picks that up and carries that torch forward?
We can certainly note that, Commissioner Vansky, but that would be the typical standard for these types of developments, that they would plat that as right-of-way. So I don't think we have to worry about that not happening too much.
And then the other comment I have is the city of Victoria is at a disadvantage, for lack of a better expression, with respect to other communities our size on the number of lift stations that we own and operate. So I think we need to take particular focus on finding a solution that doesn't involve another lift station for us to build, maybe not pay for the building of it, but construct it so it's maintenance, so it has backup generators and it has to be clean. All that's an expense that we never recover when these things get put in. So going forward, if we can avoid them, we should avoid them because our resources are constrained in this respect anyhow.
Yeah, Commissioner Vansky, Chair, members of the commission. So I believe you're likely alluding to the note related to the cul-de-sac lots up here that potentially may require a lift station or grinder pumps if gravity to the south does not work. My understanding is that, at least as far as the engineering is thus far, we do believe that gravity is going to work, which would eliminate the problem completely. But staff does agree that we want to avoid having a lift station in that area, if at all possible. There are some other options, including grinder pumps that have been thrown out, but I think we're all relatively positive on that. It's likely not going to be an issue, and that gravity is going to work in that area.
Thank you.
As we continue to develop these areas and have to put infrastructure in, are my water rates going up or down?
Kara, do you want to tackle that one?
Because you would hope as you add more, you cover more fixed costs. But if you have a lot of incremental costs to implement them, then it's not.
Hello. Kara Guerin, city engineer.
My concern about the lift stations.
I am not the finance director, but what I can tell you is that the city's fees that they collect for development from developers, both at the time of plat and time of building permit, are structured such to collect the cost of the infrastructure that's getting built to serve these areas. So that's my high-level answer.
So at a subsequent meeting, somebody could show us a graph of water and sewer rates and trend them over time.
Yes, certainly.
It's probably not for this group, but that'd be an interesting slide to see.
Now, this is back to the developer again. And the question is, and again, our position here as the Planning Commission truly is to make things happen if we can make them happen with minimal complexities and within the confines of rules and regulations. But going back to lot 13 and then lots 27 and 28, do you have a reasonable solution to dealing with those three?
And Chair and Patrick, it's on this map, it's actually 18 with the addition of the.
18?
I think an earlier iteration, it was lot 13, which is why it probably was noted as 13 in your packet.
Okay, thank you.
Are those the lots?
Those are the lots we've been talking about. Yeah, lot 18 up here, and then the two corner lots down here, 27 and 28 on the villas.
Now this is with just, what was the question on those two lots? Again?
Is there a reasonable solution to dealing with the complexities of those three lots for development?
Well, lot 27, is that the lot that's clipped off with the
Right.
setback right now? The concept plan is kind of a density exercise, and we know that's not an ideal lot.
Mm-hmm.
We've discussed with Marty and with our engineering firm the need to put ponding. Obviously, we need to put stormwater ponding, and it's quite possible that one or more of those lots may go away to, because they're not fully compliant, I guess, with the spacing we need to build one of our standard homes on, and we need the stormwater ponding. So there may be some, based on the feedback we get here tonight, there may be some redesigns that would eliminate those lots and replace them with ponding as we get more into the details.
Okay, yeah, so it is a work in progress,
Certainly, yes.
the whole plan, yeah.
Yep.
And, just for your own input on it, is that the Planning Commission essentially is the research arm for the City Council. So when it's presented to the City Council, that it'll fly.
Sure.
Or not fly, one or the other. So that's kind of what we do here. Mm-hmm. So we're not picking nits. We're here to solve problems, so,
Certainly.
very good.
If you decide to lose like 27 and 28, is there an opportunity to get wider side yard setbacks out of those, or not? Even like a half a foot, or
7.5 has been
no,
a
it's
setback
been,
that we've used in the past and
Right.
are implementing across the creek to the north in Huntersbrook First Edition right now. Haven't had a problem with 7.5s.
okay. I'm just curious if
I don't know that
just
that we
if it
would want to reduce the side yard setback, but we may end up with some more space we can
Yeah, I
use
wouldn't,
for
I wouldn't reduce
increased
them. I
lot.
was just thinking if you can make them bigger.
Make the lots bigger. Yeah, there may be that opportunity. If we, after losing a lot, have some excess frontage to be distributed, we'll certainly do that.
What's the,
What I was hearing when that idea was brought up of dropping those on those sides, the equidistance, and stretch them 4 or 5 inches, 6 inches. So.
Can I ask about 28? What's wrong with it? Like, I understand why 27 butts up against the creek setback. I see why 18 doesn't have enough space. What's wrong with 28?
Yeah, Commissioner Pedersen, chair, members of the commission, we'd identified just the right now the wetland buffer is coming into the lot. Again, there might be a intention that will be filled and that wetland line will change, which eliminates some of the question with that lot. But the red line is the wetland buffer line, and we do not allow any wetland buffer within private lots. They need to be outlotted. But again, if there's, as plans progress and there's an intention to fill wetland there, and that's jives with what the WMO is looking for, then that potentially can become a buildable lot as well.
Gotcha. The baby blue is the setback for the creek, and then
Correct.
the red's the wetland.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Now, this is back to Marty again. So there obviously isn't room for parks.
For parks?
Yeah, I can take that one, Chair, members of the commission. So no, there is not a park identified in the comp plan in this area. As you'll recall, we do have a 5+ acre park that will be just to the north as part of Tradition's Huntersbrook First Edition, and then actually directly to the south of this development in this relative area here where my mouse is, another 5+ acre park as well. So I believe that staff is comfortable with the parkland that's in the area.
Since Commissioner Kuhn hit my side yard setback aspect, the other thing that Victoria residents are often concerned about is trail connectivity, which is the soapbox I like to stand on. Is staff comfortable with the trail connectivity with this group in conjunction with the 2 other developments?
Yeah, and Commissioner Pedersen, Chair, members of the commission, thanks for bringing that up. I know it was noted in your background packet, but I inadvertently left it out as part of the presentation. There is currently a connection proposed. You can see through the middle of the development here that in addition to the collector road trail that will connect all the way up through the north, there will be trail connection between the 2 additions here across the creek that will allow folks to move through. So with that connection as well as the trail along the collector roadway, I think staff is comfortable with the trail connection being provided. As I noted, we do just need to determine where the north side trail needs to terminate to be able to provide a good connection across Creekside Lane for folks on the north side.
Thank you.
And then along that theme, then I think my last area of concern was the response on the trail that is going to run along Creekside Lane. I note that the response was that there's an assumption that Rolling Hills South will be responsible with that trail. I think we'd like that ambiguity cleared up.
Yep.
presume that something's gonna work.
Yep, and Commissioner Vansky, chair, members of the commission, that is an accurate assumption. That is part of their final approved construction plans, that they will be building that trail on the south side up to their property boundary. So that is an accurate assumption.
Okay, thank you.
On the private drive, it's really hard to tell from the drawing, but is it 24 foot in front of homes 1 through 6, and then the width reduces on the side? I mean, it looks like it's 20 foot as it goes around the wetland, and then down to Creekside Lane and 55, 54, 55, 56, 57. Is that correct? Or am I missing? I can't tell what it says.
That's correct.
It's kind of on the lines.
We're proposing 24 feet on the north side, then for the last 4 lots, cut it down to 20 feet, which is minimum width for fire.
Fire, that's what I was worried about, is how is that work with our fire equipment getting back to those homes? Because it seems like 54, 24 foot, I could see them, they can't turn, they could back out, but how are they gonna get to 54, 20 foot? They're gonna come off and have to back out onto Creekside?
Yeah, Commissioner Murray, chair, members of the commission, that's another part of the ongoing discussion with the applicant, is that regardless if that private drive exceeds 150 feet, that turnarounds will be required for fire that
We need
are.
a loop.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there, I believe there's some more work that needs to be done in this area of the private drive to, again, try to come up to a solution that works for everybody.
I know you said that, but I just wanted to bring that up because that would be my concern.
Very good. Is any comments at all from the landowner? Nothing to say. That's not a bad position to be in. There you go. Thank you.
I'm
Sure.
not relative to this. How is the reaction to your development that's underway, the Huntersbrook, Maine, the original one? You may have missed the spring parade, or I see construction going on. I don't know if you had a model out or yet.
Not yet.
We got a little bit of a late start and didn't make the spring parade, so we haven't had a model out. And I know it's close. I'm not sure if we're running, if Robert Thomas Homes and then, Gagne Homes, our partner up there, they're both building models. I know that Robert Thomas Homes, that's our home builder within our company at Tradition, they've sold, I want to say, at least 6 homes out there without a model. And, as we discussed at past meetings for Huntersbrook, all of the architectural plans come through me for final approval. And I know that, I don't know of the sales status with Gagne, but I know there have been at least 8 plans that have come through for review. So I think, considering the fact that we didn't make spring parade, we're very happy with the results.
Good reaction, good
Yes.
acceptance.
Are people that are interested able to go to other suburbs to see models that are going to be like?
Certainly, and in the case of Robert Thomas Homes, we have the Harvest development just down the street in Chaska,
Yeah.
where we have
That helps.
every one of the product types that we're building in Huntersbrook, and also the villa products as well. So,
That's great. Thank you.
What is the pricing range that you anticipate?
in this development, we're still working out the final details of who's going to build this. We have a close relationship with Gagne Homes, and we're going, Marty talked about the trail connector back into the neighborhood. We want to keep this piece south of the creek. It's going to be part of the neighborhood to the north, and that connectivity is important. We still don't know the exact mix of who's going to be building what, and I can't speak to Gagne's villa prices, but I know ours just down the street in Chaska at the Harvest, they're probably starting out now in the high 5s and running up towards 800 plus, I think it's safe to say. So, yeah, I think Gagne might be even a little bit higher end than that. So, say 550, mid 5s and up.
Well, the Gagne ones are going to be rentals, right?
Well, not in this area. I think to the area in the south that was the Welter property. That,
Closer to the railroad tracks.
yeah,
right?
they're working. They're working with Integrate Properties there on a rental
That's correct.
product. So I'm not aware of everything down there, but agree with you from everything we know that that's the rental product area.
Correct.
And I just had a quick question for Dave. Dave, is this the parcel that we worked with you on to craft the tree preservation ordinance so that this parcel would be a go for you?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So, I mean, in light of that, I think that, we're really going to be focused on the tree preservation because Dave has had a beautiful property. And I think the Planning Commission really believes that those trees are a great asset for the community and want to see as much saved as we possibly can.
Carving out. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Anyone at home? Any questions that you, any other statements that you'd like to make? Any other points you'd like to bring up at all?
Well, just to thank the staff for getting us to this point. And like we discussed, we've had real good results in Huntersbrook, just to the north, and value our relationship with Dave Gastak here in bringing this forward, and looking forward to another successful project here later this year. Thank you.
Very good. Well, I'm sure we will be meeting again very soon. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you.
We also want to thank Marty and wish him well in his next episode.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're losing a valuable person.
Yes, we are.
Do you guys build in North Dakota?
We tried to get Dana to reject his moving on.
Yeah.
What a good job.
Yeah, very good. Appreciate it. I'm sure Marty appreciates it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hearing no other discussion, we will close this item. Our second item is the discussion and feedback purpose, and this is item 3.2, transportation update. And I will now turn it over to City Engineer Guerin for the staff presentation.
Here I am.
Thank
Marty
you.
gave me a spot. That's because
You're in the
he's a
driver's
short
seat.
timer.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it was a couple months ago, I think, Marty and Isaac reached out to me and asked me to come and give you an update on the transportation priorities happening around the city, which I thought was a fantastic idea because there's a lot happening. And as the Planning Commission, you are going to interact with some of these projects as they come forward, or as land develops in these particular areas. So I've got a handful of slides to go through here, but certainly we can stop along the way and answer questions, or we can come back after we get through the information. But what I just wanted to start with was a refresher that Carver County adopted a local option sales tax and an excise tax and increased the wheelage tax back in 2017. So this was a big initiative that the county undertook to really create a funding source to be able to then leverage county dollars to obtain state and federal dollars to get projects completed in Carver County. Historically, we haven't had a lot of success getting funding into the county from outside sources. And really, we're in a situation where we had a lot of work that needed to happen throughout the county. So the county went through a whole big public engagement process, and the county commissioners ended up putting this tax in place back in 2017. And at the time that they developed the plan, it was necessary for them to identify what projects would be funded specifically with this tax. So a graphic was put together, it was circulated, cities reviewed it, we had an opportunity to provide input about what was included. But they identified 20 different reconstruction and expansion projects throughout the county that this money would be spent on. And so That's what you're seeing on this map here. So that specific funding that's been generated can't be used, say, on a totally different road compared to what's shown on here. So this was set in stone in 2017. So these then projects that were put on this map really needed to be further defined and refined through a corridor study process. So there's corridor study work happening all over the county, but specific to the city of Victoria, we had the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan that I'll touch on a bit here, and then the Highway 10 corridor study that did get expanded to include a portion of Highway 11, not because it was shown on, you'll see Highway 11 in the area of the development we were just talking about was not shown on this tax implementation plan, but because of its proximity to the improvements on 11, the county and the city opted to expand that study area so we could gain the information we needed on 11 at the same time. The first project within the city of Victoria from the Transportation Tax Implementation Plan was completed in 2020 with the traffic signal at 11, 43, and 18. That was a project that the city specifically asked to be added to the county's plan. So it was good to see one get implemented right out of the gates. And I know we get a lot of positive feedback from people with that who drive in that area regularly with having that signal in place now. And that intersection did include some pedestrian crossing improvements too, which were much needed in the area. So the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan, that study was an 18-month to 2-year process. It was $1 million study just to figure out what was going to happen with these roads. And you all, I'm sure many of you will recall, there was pretty extensive public engagement involved in that process. And so, we got through this first phase of the process, and that was understanding the justification of what was needed, developing concepts, and really creating a vision for all of the roadway improvements in the corridor. The result of that was a conclusion that there was about a $206 million estimated cost for the improvements identified in that plan. 100 million of them, of the costs, are intended to come from the local option sales tax that we just talked through. But you'll see that there's 80 million in grants that are needed. So 80 million in outside funding that needs to be obtained to move that vision for the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan from a study to construction. So, funding is a key piece in moving those projects forward.
Has any grants been secured?
Well, that's a perfect segue to the next slide. So this is just a map that shows so you can read it, version of what projects were included in the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan. These orange projects were identified as being short-term projects that needed to be completed sooner than later. Yellow being midterm, so that 2027 to 2031 range, and then long-term 2032 to 2040. So the county immediately hit the ground running with really the pursuit of funding. So as the study was being completed, the county did apply for regional solicitation funds for this first segment of expansion to Highway 5, and they were successful in getting 10 million. So this section right here is programmed to be widened to 4 lanes in that 2025-2026 timeframe. As part of that application, they did include applying for an underpass to be located in the area of the Madeline Creek, Madeline Trail, Madeline Creek, and Whispering Hills Park that would then connect to the trail to nowhere that exists on the north side of Highway 5 that got put in when I first started working here 20 years ago. But that does include much needed intersection improvements at this location. I'm going to come back to the funding question as we move on to future slides, but this is the whole vision of what's included in the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan.
So if I've seen survey crews on 5 by the Arboretum, what are they doing?
So the Arboretum is in the process of developing their master plan to relocate the entrance to the Arboretum.
Farmhouse is, right?
Correct.
By Minnewachuta.
Yeah, so as part of the Highway 5 challenges, and you all live in this area, you experience the backups that occur, particularly anytime there's an event at the Arboretum with traffic trying to get in and trying to get out. The Arboretum's been working with MnDOT for a long time to figure out what really is the best access situation for the Arboretum. And so in conjunction with historical work and confirmation of information through the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan, it was determined that relocating the Arboretum entrance to the intersection of Minnewachuta is the best way forward to provide access safely to the Arboretum. So, we now have a signal at that intersection. MnDOT did just recently confirm that that signal, although it was temporary, will be able to remain in place. So folks in that area are excited, I'm sure, about that news. So the Arboretum's currently working on developing their preliminary engineering plans for relocating that entrance. As part of that, the Apple House is intended to move over to that location. And they're going to kind of restructure their the way you pay during those large events like the light show or the big peak season events. They'll not 100% sure, but what they're looking at is that you would actually pay upon exit. So that you aren't backing up onto the highway as you're trying to get through their entrance booth. But so they're still working through some of those things. They don't have the funding yet in place for all of the improvements associated with relocating their access, but the work they're doing right now today is to set them up to be able to pursue that funding. The intent would be that, about the time the 4-lane expansion is happening, that we already have the money for, they'd be in a position to relocate their entrance at that time. So it's a pretty big change in the area. There are concerns from a handful of residents who live in Chanhassen, so I don't quite know the extent or the number of concerns with just the changes in that relocated entrance. So there's ongoing public engagement anticipated to occur soon to talk about that. I think the concern is that Arboretum traffic would start using Minnewachuta Parkway to get to and from the Arboretum instead of Rolling Acres Road and Highway 41. So the county is currently focusing their efforts. So, we have this broader area map, but right now they're targeting this area for funding. So, we'll talk about County Road 18 here first. So they are leading the effort to pursue state bonding funds. So there's about a $10 million gap identified for funding through that section. So they are pursuing state bonding funds. The mayor and others have testified in support of that bonding. The request was made last session. It's in again this session. So we'll have more information about that in about a month. But in an ideal situation, the county would like to see County Road 18 improved in advance of the planned improvements on Highway 5, so that traffic flows when they...
I can tell who's riding on the dirt road in my neighborhood by how dirty their car is.
Well, the kids have to ride on it. It's the only way to get to school on time.
Exactly.
To be real candid.
Shock
you can't
absorbers.
get there
Might need new shock absorbers, but...
Yep, and that is included in the information that is shared. So, what you have in your packet is just a snapshot of this document that the county's using to solicit that bonding money. And then same thing for Highway 5. So They are in the process. So as I noted, the 10 million covers Minnewaska Parkway through the intersection of Rolling Acres up to the Park Cochia entrance. They're now pursuing additional funding to extend that 4-lane through the intersection of Steiger Lake Lane and 78th Street, and then out to 41. The section of Rolling Acres Road is included actually in the county's capital improvement plan for funding because they've been planning for a long time to make improvements to that corridor. So the county's goal is to see if they can successfully assemble all of the funding to make this a reality. And it's pretty remarkable for me to be sitting here, having worked here as long as I have. The number of complaints that we get about this intersection and the traffic backups that come back through town as a result of this, not being 4-lane. It quieted down in the pandemic as more people were working from home, but we would get phone calls and complaints from people that would say, how can you keep approving new developments when there's no plans to expand Highway 5? And the city would have to say, well, that's up to the state. And here's the next plat that's getting approved.
8 o'clock at night, it's not a problem. It's not. At 8 o'clock at night, if I'm coming on 5 and I'm going to turn left on Bavaria, I'm like, why am I waiting at the traffic light here for the arrow? Because nobody's coming the other way.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's frustrating.
But at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Rolling Acres, and if you come up Bavaria in the morning, there's just a ton of people coming down Rolling Acres. I assume they come off of 7.
Yep.
So are they heading over to 41 south? Are they just going to continue on 5, or is it because 7 is so backed up? Are they just trying to avoid
That's the least
continuing on
resistance.
7?
The answer to that is Google. And yes, they're coming from St. Bonnie, Mound, and getting on 5 to go to Chanhassen and Eden Prairie.
Yeah.
And most of them are turning left. They're not going straight down Bavaria.
No, they're turning left, yeah.
They're turning left to go on 5 to basically go out to Eden Prairie, because if you take 7 ends out going north. It is actually faster from St. Bonnie on 7 to 494 than 5.
True.
It is, but they're usually like going to Eden Prairie or.
So you go out of your
Or,
way.
And there's a fair amount of commercial vehicle traffic.
and there's a lot of trucks that.
Correct.
But
Seven's actually good in the morning.
Really?
I drive it a lot.
I've been on 7 once.
So there's a roundabout that's planned sort of like for in that Swiss Mountain area, right?
Correct. So at the intersection of Interlochen and the church entrance, the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan identified a roundabout in that location. Now, of course, how that fits will depend on the actual engineering when it comes through, but that's what's in the vision.
I would be an advocate personally for undersizing it so it's a very, very arduous, difficult roundabout to get through for this commercial vehicle, and they would say this is not worth it. And then they travel on 7 like the road has been designed to carry that weight.
That is a sentiment heard from the very active participants in the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan study.
You don't want to get too close to the intersection on 5 when they're taking a left. You don't want to go up to the white line because they're not going to hit you.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
can I ask you a question in terms of the 4 lane, because I'm the newest here? How are you defining 4 lanes? Is it 4 lanes with a median? Is it 4 lanes side by side on 5?
The vision for Highway 5 is 4 lanes with a median.
With a median.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at some of the apartments on both sides here, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of room. Are you going to be like driving through somebody's bedroom? Or?
So there was ample right-of-way. So the right-of-way exists on the corridor to fit the 4 lane. Within the downtown area, the vision calls for, because the speeds are slower, reduced lane widths, reduced median widths. We certainly can share with you a link to the story map that has the different vision pieces for what the corridor would look like. But we were surprised by how well it really seemed to fit within the downtown footprint area by using the reduced lane widths. And there was an opportunity, we'll leave the city with an opportunity to consider doing some streetscape features, landscape amenities consistent with what we have within the rest of downtown that I think.
How bad is 5?
be
Because
nice.
after everybody, if they're heading, after work, right, they're heading home. A lot of people do go south on Bavaria. A lot of people go up Rolling Acres. How bad is it for the rest? Is it really that bad?
It's still pretty bad through the intersection of out here.
Waconia traffic. Still using 5 instead of 10.
So we don't want to forget about the other priorities, though. You know, Highway 5 is a big piece of the equation, but we did have an additional corridor study for Highway 10. The layout that you're seeing up on the top of the screen here is specifically the layout for Highway 11. So County Road 10 is on the left of the intersection. Here is the railroad tracks in the middle, and the intersection of Marsh Lake Road would be to the right. So this section of Highway 11 is going to be improved this summer. So the city is actually leading that project. So that project needs to occur to accommodate the access points for the Huntersbrook project and the Marsh Hollow project. So that's in design, and it runs from the railroad tracks, not all the way to the intersection of Marsh Lake Road, but just up to it. So that road will be reconstructed to be a 2-lane road with a median, and then turn lanes in and out of the development. So it's not going to be 4 lanes, it'll just be 2 lanes with a median, and then access points into the new development. I will highlight that the construction of those improvements will require County Road 11 to be closed for a period of time this summer, which will be fun for everybody who takes that way to get to 212 in the morning. To and from work, the official detour will be County Road 43. But, you know, typically people find their own route to get to places. So the construction will be this summer. They think the actual period of time that the road would be closed is probably more in that, 6 to 8 week time frame, but there isn't a way to do it without closing the road.
What does the median look like? Is it like a 3-foot concrete? What is it?
It is just a concrete median.
Like 7, like 3 foot high?
Not that high. It's lower, like just a curbed concrete median.
So when you say lower, like a foot?
Yeah, like just off the ground. If you've been over by Waconia High School at all.
Mm-hmm. Just the curb, not the Jersey barrier.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's the 2-lane divided standard is becoming pretty standard from a safety perspective, and the county's built a couple of them now, couple of segments of that corridor around the high school in Waconia.
Instead of the grooved traction in the middle, like
or just no median.
Do they have that in Carver going down?
Yes.
South of Quick Trip or south of Fleet Farm on the other side of 212?
Yep. And then that, whatever Creek Road, whatever that road is that goes to 212 with the double roundabouts.
It's 11.
Yeah, when you turn left. I'm so useless at road names as soon as we leave Victoria. But you're going south, like you're going to Carver, past County Road 10, and you're taking a left on like County Road 140.
Oh, okay, yeah. 140.
Where 140 then winds down and then connects back with the old 12.
It used to be County Road 40.
Yeah, so
It's a street name of.
So there's double roundabouts there now, and there's this type of median situation in that location too. I think this equipment is possessed. So yeah, we'll be leading that part to the north. South of the railroad tracks, we would envision that section of Highway 11 being improved in conjunction with any development in our, planned commercial area, the triangle, I like to call it.
You're leading the project, does that mean we're paying for it?
So the project is being funded. The city is required under the county's cost participation policy to fund development-driven improvements. So the improvements to Highway 11 are necessary because of the development. So through the city's development agreement, we have secured funding for portions of the city share of improvements from both the Huntersbrook developer and the Marsh Hollow developer. We're very restricted legislatively in terms of how broad of a net we can cast for collecting funding for improvements to highway infrastructure. It's been to court. The legislature hasn't given cities expressed authority to be able to do that. So we were able to negotiate a cost participation for what was deemed a reasonable share of the costs. And really what they're funding is the cost of the turn lanes that are necessary to be installed and the trail. So they're required to provide a trail, but we're actually building the trail with our project because construction-wise it made more sense. The county is funding a large share of the project, and then the remaining will be funded from the city's gas tax money that we collect from the city's share of gas tax funds that we get annually. So down here in the lower left side of the screen is what is in the vision for County Road 10 in the corridor study for County Road 10. So this is the intersection with Highway 11, and then as you go to the left, you're coming out to the railroad tracks. Some of you might recall that the city and the county did not reach consensus on the vision for that corridor. So the county envisions Highway 10 as really a regional corridor with very limited access. So the study that got approved by the county calls for only mile access spacing on County Road 10, which is not at all consistent with the city's vision for that corridor. So the city did not approve the corridor study, and the county knows that we aren't in agreement with the results. As we start to develop into this area, and or as the county starts to proceed with any improvements to the corridor, the city council, the planning commission, city staff are going to need to be working really close with the county on how to reconcile the disconnect between their vision and our vision. Mile spacing on that corridor would mean that you would have zero access onto County Road 10 between County Road 11 and the railroad tracks. So, you know, we have these ideas for commercial and expanded tax base all along County Road 10, and if they succeed in limiting your access to only being mile spacing, it's going to make that much more challenging. So this graphic over here on the right is what was in the city's comprehensive plan process for what we envisioned for transportation corridors in this area. So, you know, we had a couple of different access points all the way through in areas where they would envision none. So as anything starts to move past the railroad tracks or to points west of the development you saw tonight with Huntersbrook, that's going to be something that we're all going to have to start putting a lot of time and effort into reconciling with the county. So, you know, wanted you to be aware of that reality, because in your role, you'll be kind of right in the middle of it. Jumping back to County Road 11, I skipped over the intersection of County Road 11 and Marsh Lake Road. So as part of the design for the Highway 11 improvement projects, we did ask our consultant to take another look at that intersection. I don't know if you're all aware, but there's been a pretty significant uptick in crashes at that intersection. A pretty high number of occurrences in the last year. It seems that with the uptick in growth in the area, including what's happening in Chaska, there's a lot more traffic coming from Pioneer Trail onto County Road 11 in this location, and we're seeing an uptick in crashes. The work that's been done to date has concluded that this intersection is going to be really pretty close to meeting warrants for a roundabout. So the county is actually going to start pursuing funding for that roundabout. through this current funding cycle in hopes that we can cobble together enough money to get that constructed sooner than later. People in the area, I think, are going to be pretty enthusiastic about that with the crashes that are happening at that intersection.
And Kara, is this intersection north of where the proposed closure of 11 will take place?
Yes.
So this will become the unofficial detour that you were speaking of earlier.
Correct.
Aside from County Road 43.
Correct. And, it'll be, the Chaska folks aren't going to drive over to County Road 43 to get to 212. They're going to go, back
Pioneer
through
Trail
Chaska to 41. So, it'll be interesting to see how many Victoria folks go Pioneer Trail to 41 or 43 over to 10. That left turn on 10 off 43 is not a great turn. So that will be construction fun, I guess. Couple other areas to just highlight back up in the Highway 5 area. So the city's been working on the question of whether a roundabout would work for the Arboretum Convenience Project that you all saw a couple of months ago. We did give a presentation to the City Council at the last City Council meeting that you could certainly go back and watch to get an update of the findings of that work that's been completed to date. But the first phase of the study that was done did conclude that a roundabout would be appropriate at that location given the land use change that is being considered to switch from a low-density residential land use to a commercial land use. So there's more work to be done before that would become a reality. The study that the council authorized in this regard was set up in phases that we completed the first phase, did a check-in with the developer and the city council, and then the developer needs to submit escrow funds to fund the next phase of the study. And so we're waiting for them to make a decision if they want to continue on evaluating it. And then the other very important intersection is 11 and 5 near Dairy Queen. That is an important intersection generally for the city of Victoria, but certainly in conjunction with any improvements to the 13.5 acres. MnDOT would like to see a roundabout at that intersection. The city actually applied for funding last year for a traffic signal at that intersection, and MnDOT was not supportive of that because they do think that a roundabout would be a better fit there. Part of what they're thinking is that it would help slow traffic down as you transition from the rural setting into the urban setting, which would make access to the 13.5 acres a little bit easier to deal with. So MnDOT's doing a scoping study to see how a roundabout would fit there, and then the county will be submitting an application for funding for a roundabout in this next funding cycle.
Can I just bring you back to the County Road 11
Yep.
improvements that are being talked about for, especially the subdivisions that we've just been talking about being connected there. Is there still time, budget to be able to have the railroad crossing be turned into a whistle-less crossing that we could tack on to, the development plans at this point and try to say, hey, we know this is kind of a late addition, but we're plunking a lot of homes down there, and that whistle crossing is going to create a lot of contention, and you'll probably hear Dana shouting not so nice expletives of her inbox if
Yeah,
you can see. So
that's a great question and timely.
forward.
So I'll bring that to the county to have that conversation. Technically, the railroad tracks are still in the county. So we haven't annexed through the railroad tracks. So, but that's great timing, and I'll bring that up to the county to discuss.
Great,
The
thanks.
train guy was talking, I can't remember how many trains it was, right?
I think it's 6 right now.
Was it heavier in
Yeah,
the
he,
season?
if I recall, he had a number, and then there seemed to be some contention around the.
Yes, there was.
right?
It was virtually, I believe, close to times two of what was stated in the website in terms of,
And then it'll only be a matter of time before, on the other side of 11, the landowner there will say, there's a lot of homes going in across on the other side of County Road 11. Might be time for me to reach into the family coffers and put this up for sale. And then, it's just going to double up.
Is that side
No.
Chaska?
So the Chaska side is in the green belt, so it's not allowed to be developed under Chaska's comprehensive plan. They don't intend to bring sewer and water to it. Now, the city could change their plans, but that's been their plan for several rounds of their comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Maybe
So
they'll
then
ask
the
to be
existing
annexed.
landowner and the farmer would benefit from a whistle-less stop.
Right.
And it would probably be better to have the county absorb that funding rather than the city of Victoria having to buy a whistle-less stop to deal with its residents only to benefit Chaska across the street.
Yes. So the county is leading pursuits for funding. So regional solicitation applications just went in. That's funding, that's federal funding that's administered through the Met Council. Highway Safety Improvement Program, those applications are due soon. The other thing the county has done is hired a consultant program administrator to refine and implement the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan. So that's a huge undertaking that they don't have capacity just sitting, on staff. So they've hired a consultant to help them work through that process. I did want to at least highlight, this, you all don't have to concern yourself as much with the funding side, but as residents, there is needed city investment in order to complete all these projects. So all of the projects we've talked about today do have a city share under the cost participation policies that exist. So the city's looking at about $13 million needed between now and 2040 for the city share of the project costs. So the city's been working on making sure that those projects are incorporated into the capital improvement plan, the long-term financial plan, and that we're developing strategies for how the city's share will be funded. But things that the city needs to do in conjunction with all this work, certainly development planning and coordination will be important. So, if any of these projects come forward in any of those areas, you'll be seeing from myself and from planning staff, the things that will be drawing your attention to those concerns in any area that development may be occurring. And then, of course, there's ongoing agency coordination and staff time. There's the pursuit of applicable city grants where it's appropriate, and then we do frequently ask the council for resolutions of support for these various applications and engagement by them with other elected officials. And with that, those are all of my slides, but I'm happy to answer any more questions.
I would just make a comment rather than a question. Looking at that $13 million number, the Arboretum Transportation Plan, which you had a few slides up earlier, had $206 million of project costs, and Victoria's share of that is almost $11 million. So that's 5% of that project's cost. We're talking about $13 million over 17 years on a budget of $9.6 million for just the entire city. That's almost like another 10% of our city's budget going to pay for these projects. It's a heavy ask. So the people of Victoria are going to be looking to foot a pretty sizable bill for this. And we should, put all, everybody kind of should be thinking, hey, how can we come up with something ingenious to fund this?
Or delay them.
Or delay it.
Well, and on top of it, the $206 million is being asked to be paid for by state and federal taxpayers. So it's you're paying for it one way or another.
Am I reading it right that there's $7.5 million is for A pedestrian overpass?
So the numbers that you're seeing on, wherever that is, it's on here somewhere.
Page 12
One of your
14.
later slides, I think.
It's page 12. One back.
One, yeah.
Or two back. There.
Yeah.
So what you have to be aware of is these are inflated dollars. So that's
So
a 2045 number.
Number.
In today's dollars, that's about a $3 million project, and the city just approved making application for that overpass in the regional solicitation. So the numbers you're seeing here are all inflated to the build year. So it skews them a little bit terrifyingly.
But it's still,
I just am like a pedestrian overpass. Is there a lot of pedestrian? Do we expect a lot of pedestrian traffic over 7?
So yeah, this one up here, that one there is demand for it through the public engagement process.
It's crazy because I drive that all the time. I've never seen anybody walking over there
Well, and they would argue that they aren't because they would die.
because they die.
Yeah, that would be but through the public engagement process, that was identified
If you go down
as,
the road a half a mile, there's an underpass
Yeah.
or a trail, so.
I'm like, how many people for $3 million? I'm having a hard time with that one.
well, and the reality of it is that's an important thing to note that, there was a ton of public engagement that occurred in the vision phase, but that public engagement will occur throughout the implementation of any of these projects. And the city council will end up, in most cases, not all cases, but in many cases, having to agree to the project. So, the reality of what ends up getting built is going to really depend on the circumstances for any particular project. These things are complicated and take a long time to actually come to fruition.
Well, 2045. I just am like, what is an ROI on how many people would actually cross that street on a bridge at $7 million? Like, I just am having a really hard time with those numbers.
Yeah,
I'm trying to put myself even 23 years out, and I'm still like, really?
Yep.
Well, so it gets back to the cost of some of these developments to the south. If you have to do 10 and you have to do 11, is it really worth it? Is it really worth having that development?
It's not for me to decide.
Well, their taxes aren't enough to offset that. I don't think so.
But I do think that one of the topics that keeps on coming up on a very, very regular basis, both here in the Planning Commission and also in the City Council, a member of the City Council who brings it up on a very regular basis is commercial development. And we are so light on commercial development relative to the tax base. And so there's, how do we essentially make this happen? And it is through commercial development. And I think that's a push that really has to occur in a very big way. And I think the city council members at the same time would probably more than likely concur with that. And that's
Right, as long as it's the right commercial development.
the right commercial development, exactly.
Gun shooting range is the right commercial development, in my opinion. Because I don't think the development would come unless we're really hoping for like a Applebee's or something coming to the area. You got to attract big business.
Yeah.
If we're going to be onshoring manufacturing, which is, we talk about it, but we haven't really done that much. But let's bring it on, right?
Well, you look at, you look at the likes of a United Healthcare, who is making acquisitions by the month, literally, and expanding accordingly. And I think we could find some room for a United Healthcare facility.
As those people work from home, many, I'm sure their offices
A lot, yeah.
dramatically changing.
Almost all of their employees are.
then one needs to be careful in that you don't get so glassy-eyed over the prospect of trying to attract it that you wind up giving the store away and you don't hit your tax, this marginal utility of.
People beg them in and.
Do we get more in terms of city services on an additional dollar of taxation coming through, or is it deleterious, and we certainly don't want that. So
We should tax people who live in Waconia, who ride through Victoria on our expanded 5.
Toll road.
Toll roads.
You have to buy a sticker or something.
That's all you have.
I think we could probably get Floyd's to put in an MN pass.
Stop here.
Anything else for me? Otherwise, I'll
No,
turn
no.
you back.
No, but-
This was very nice, thank
Party
you.
Very
leader.
nice, Karen.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think that it gives us a big picture view. And I think that the education of it is that, you know, we can have a different view of what we're approving and why we're approving it at the same time. So, you know, I think it's very, very beneficial, and thank you very much.
And thank you for bringing
Appreciate
the
it.
whistleless train stop.
Certainly. I will send an email now. Thank you.
So, moving on to the miscellaneous section of our agenda, tonight it's all about Marty. And it's I think we're all going to miss Marty. I think we worked well. I think we all had the opportunity. We're all a lot brighter, quite frankly, than before you came. So I thank you for that. I think it's but give the Planning Commission kind of an overview of what 90 days down the road looks like for the city relative to your departure.
Chair, members of the commission, first, thank you. Again, I can't reiterate enough. It's been a pleasure the last few years being here. Have enjoyed working with each and every one of you. I do believe that my position is planned to be filled at some point, so I can't speak specifically to the timing of when that will happen. You are in very capable hands, if nothing else in the interim, with Isaac, our city planner, who is going to keep things running smoothly, have all the faith in the world that it's not going to skip a beat. And unlike myself coming into this role, Isaac actually has some legitimate planning background, where I came more from the communications side of things. So, you'll likely even see a step up in the game. So that's, I can't speak for certain about timing on those types of things, but I know you'll be in capable hands, at least in the interim.
Very good. Yeah, that's what I anticipated. At the same time, the commissioners, is there any thoughts on the departure of our buddy Marty?
I don't think there's any additional thoughts than what you've already expressed, and it has been expressed. We wish him well in his new endeavors, and we thank him for his work here.
Thank you.
I'll just simply move one step closer to potential unanimity of that, and Marty's done a great job. And as we know, Julie and I have not been part of this for just barely over a year, but I will say that the quality of work and the professionalism and the exceptional job you've done has really made it easy for us to review these things that come before the commission and have very little doubt and question about what the right direction is. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, at all of our semi-annual reviews with the city council, I always talk about the fact that Marty makes us look like we know what we're doing, and that's probably more true than we would probably want to admit at the same time. So, a few words, Marty. a few more words.
No, again, it's been a great opportunity. I've enjoyed my time here, enjoyed working with this group, working with staff here. Like I said, you're in very capable hands with Isaac. When I leave, he's a rock star. I'm going to put him on the spot here a little bit, but he's got his stuff together, and you're not going to see a beat missed. So, thank you, everybody.
Very good, thank you. Any other topics at all by the commissioners?
We need to respond to the Gail Fisher email, or I think that was sent to all of us.
Who responds to that, Marty?
Great question.
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah.
The email that came from Gail Fisher regarding, does the staff or somebody respond to that? And will we get a copy of a response?
Yeah, commissioners, that also went to the city council, I believe. So I will likely have to touch base with Dana on if and how a response to that will be provided from staff. Again, as a planning commissioner, you have the ability, if you choose to want to respond, you're able to do so. But we haven't talked specifically about a staff reply to that, or I'm not sure if the city council is planning to reply. So I don't have an answer to that right now.
Like a reply would be warranted.
But if we reply, it should be an individual reply, not a reply all.
Correct. That ideally, yes.
I think to a very large extent that a response by those that were addressed on it is pretty much contingent upon the fact that if this development does happen, then a response is warranted. If it moves another step, it made the one step, and if there's another step that does occur, then a response, I think, is absolutely necessary. But it was an email that was written based on that particular point in time. So, I think that's whatever anyone's judgment is on that.
We were told that without funding to do acoustics and stuff, that nothing was moving forward.
That's accurate.
They should communicate that to her. It would be nice to communicate that to everybody in this, who heard about it, and say, hey, right now that is not moving forward.
And Commissioner Schwarting, chair, members of the commission, this individual we've had conversations with her previously. That information has been relayed to that specific individual. I've spoken.
Did they send that email after that?
Correct. I've spoken to her. I've relayed that information. So that information has been provided.
She seemed to know a lot about where you were going and whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
The official publication of record would also be a real good spot for an article that someone from the Chan Villager would write on that, and then everyone would know what the story is too. So yeah, good point on that.
But it does seem that the response to this is in the purview of the city manager and the city council and the communications director. And then if it seems that she would like to have a public forum, then the city council and the city manager can decide whether or not we want to open a public hearing within the confines of the planning commission for her to be able to make her public appeals known. So from that perspective, I mean, I believe that the best course of action is to have Dana and the mayor and city council take point on the response to it.
Yes, members of the commission, I will be talking to Dana about it. We haven't had an opportunity to discuss it in detail since it came in, so I apologize. I don't have more information on it at the moment.
Very good. Any other comments, issues, concerns? Eric?
Yeah, I'm observing, honestly, the first, couple nights in, it's,
You're official tonight.
I'm official.
Voting member.
And honestly, I'm just listening. There were a couple, there were comments that were addressed by others throughout the presentation on the Plat. Marty, to you, Isaac, to you both, my orientation with you guys gave me a good start to this, and the communications, I think, throughout have been, what everyone said I should expect to see, and I haven't seen anything other than that. So you're going to be missed, and I'm looking forward to working with you, Isaac, and the rest of you. So, nothing more.
Very good. Seeing no other issues coming up, is there a motion to adjourn?
Was someone at city council for the last meeting? Is there a city council?
I was at the city council, but Kara pretty much covered everything that was at the council meeting.
Okay.
Good point.
They had a workshop ahead of time talking about a pedestrian crossing up at Deer Run and County Road 11 that pretty much got rejected or tabled, or there used to be a crosswalk from across the street, and when the county redid the road, there's no connection on Deer Run. There's no trail over on Deer Run, and to put a trail in was going to be very costly. And it'd be another trail to nowhere because there are no trails in Deer Run, and people would start walking on golf court trails and think they're private trails, and they're not. So it kind of got, better use of money for other trail connections that the city council thought. And then the other items were presentation on the roundabout to the commercial that Kara kind of talked about. Phase 1 of that going possibly to phase 2, and then the approval to try to solicit some funds for the overpass trail crossing at 78 across Highway 5. But that's about it.
Thank you.
Now, when does Bavaria East come up on the city council's agenda? Soon?
Chair, members of the commission, I don't know off the top of my head. I have to look at the future meeting list to see when that discussion is planned again. Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's coming up, but that's good news.
It's not our problem.
What's that?
It's not our problem.
Well, you're on the notification list, you get the agenda.
It's our solution.
Yes, so we'll know then.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jack.
Thank you.
I motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
I think Marty should have been able to adjourn.
Meeting.